I've had Bobcat, my 2-year-old cat, ever since he was a kitten. He's always been a vocal cat, chirping happily at me when I come home from work, yowling loudly when he wanted my attention, and purring like an engine when I pet him. He has all the weird cat behaviors: obsession over knocking random items on the ground and swatting them around, staring at flickering lights and shadows across the ceiling and walls, and yowling at nothing in the middle of the night. Pre-pandemic, I used to spend maybe 8-9 hours at my apartment, and most of that time was spent sleeping. Since I didn't see Bobcat that much, I found his behavior endearing and funny. With lockdown procedures, I'm suddenly at home 24/7. It's weird how you could live somewhere for years and not notice certain things, but the moment you're stuck at home 24/7, all these issues surface with the place where you live. Nothing happened the first 2 weeks of lockdown. Bobcat stuck by my side like Velcro and eyed me suspiciously, as if wondering why I was suddenly home and in his territory all day. Then one day, on the 3rd week of lockdown, I was in the kitchen, half awake, fumbling around trying to make coffee. Since working from home, my schedule had been completely thrown off, and when I would normally be freshly showered and en route to work in pre-lockdown times, I was now just rolling out of bed, yanking on a clean shirt, and making coffee. Bobcat was playing with something. He swat the item on the ground and it scattered across the hardwood. He gave chase, caught up to it, and then swatted it around again. Worried it was something he could eat and choke on, I bent down to inspect the item he was playing with. It was a bobby pin. I picked it up off the ground without a second thought and dropped it into the key bowl on the counter. I made a mental note to give it back to my girlfriend the next time she came over. She must have dropped a lot of bobby pins at my place because Bobcat somehow managed to find a new one to swat every morning. On the 4th week of lockdown, Bobcat started his yowling. It was the middle of the afternoon and I was sitting on the couch typing away at my laptop. Bobcat had been napping, curled up tightly against my side. I was vaguely aware of the moment his little head popped up. A few seconds later, he got up and trotted off somewhere. A second later, he started yowling. I had rolled my eyes but didn't pay him any attention until I wrapped up what I was working on and stood up for a coffee refill. "Bobcat," I had called out over the sounds of his yowls. I pulled his favorite cat treat out from the cupboard and shook the bag. When I didn't hear his telltale chirp and the soft pads of his feet, I set the treat bag down on the counter and went off in search of him. I had followed the sounds of his yowls to my room. He was standing by the far corner, his back to the door and his head tipped up. I had looked up to see what he was staring at. A single piece of hair dangled from the corner, like a spider web. I'd shook my head, reached up, plucked the hair down. "You're so silly, Bobcat." I dangled the hair in front of him. He stood up on his back legs and swatted his paws at the hair. Again, I attributed the hair to my girlfriend. I didn't even think twice about how it got up into the corner of my room. I flushed the hair down the toilet, and Bobcat followed me back out to the kitchen for his treat. The yowling continued for days, ranging from a few minutes to half an hour. Sometimes I would find a similar strand of hair hanging from the corner. Other times, Bobcat would just sit and stare up into nothing. At night, Bobcat would situate himself on top of my legs and sleep. But for the past few nights, Bobcat has started to wake up in the middle of the night, using my legs as a springboard to jump off the bed and jolting me awake in the process. And if I somehow manage to doze off again, he wakes me up with a few loud meows and then chirps as he darts across the apartment, chasing something or another. The first few times I just pulled the covers over my head and willed him to stop. 2 nights ago, I woke up before he did, and I lay awake for a while, staring up at the ceiling, waiting for Bobcat to suddenly awake and start his nightly shenanigans. Abruptly, I heard something from the far corner of my room. The sound of something small hitting the ground. As if on cue, Bobcat perked up and then jumped off my bed. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. When I heard the same sound last night, I sat up in bed. Bobcat took off like a rocket. I looked in the direction of the far corner. It was the same corner that Bobcat sits and yowls at in the afternoons. I stared into the pitch black of the corner, but couldn't make anything out. Yet somehow, I felt like there was something living in the shadows, as if something was staring back at me. I don't know how long I sat there, locked in a staring contest with something I couldn't see. But then Bobcat hopped back up on the bed, and I looked away. When I looked back, I no longer felt that presence. This morning I awake and go about my usual routine, the events of the night before safely tucked behind a veil of drowsiness. I pluck a stray bobby pin from Bobcat's paws. I read through some documents for work. I pause halfway and get up to shut my bedroom door firmly. A half hour later, Bobcat gets up from the couch to head to my bedroom. I watch him over the top of my laptop monitor. He paws at the door and meows loudly, demanding entrance. He's yowling and pawing so obsessively, I feel a pang of fear as the events of last night resurface in my head. Eventually, Bobcat gives up and resigns himself to laying in front of the bedroom door, his eyes fixed on me and his tail flicking irritatedly. When it's time for bed, I take 2 steps towards my bedroom, change my mind, and fluff up the cushions on the couch. The bedroom door has remained shut all day, and with each passing hour, I feel a growing, angry, oppressed energy emanating from my room. I angle myself on the couch so that I can keep an eye on the door. At some point, I must have fallen asleep, I wake up with a jolt, with a sinking feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach. Bobcat is laying by my feet, his ears perked up and his head swiveled in the direction of my bedroom. The feeling of dread only grows stronger when I look up and notice my bedroom door has swung wide open. Without a second's warning, Bobcat springs up and bounds towards my bedroom. "Bobcat," I hiss, not wanting to raise my voice for some reason. I throw off my blanket and follow him to the room. I reach the doorway and stop when every atom in my body tells me not to go into my room. Bobcat stands in the dark, his face upturned to the darkened corner above him, and his ears standing alert. I take a step closer and freeze when Bobcat suddenly turns his head and fixes his unblinking, bright yellow eyes on me. He lets out a short, greeting meow and then turns back to stare up into the corner. His tail twitches impatiently. For some inexplicable reason, the slick, cloying feeling of fear and dread seeps into my body. The tips of my fingers grow cold and numb. My heart beats so hard I can physically feel the pulsing through my body. "Bobcat," I croak out, "what are you looking at?" The forced chuckle I let out sounds strained and high-pitched and does not have the intended effect of diffusing my fear. Bobcat continues to stare into the dark corner. I take another couple of small steps forward, my eyes fixed on the small, comforting form of Bobcat the entire time. I slowly force my eyes from the top of Bobcat's head to the wall in front of him. My jaw is clenched so tightly that I feel like my ears might pop. I force my eyes up another few inches until I'm looking right at the spot before the wall ascends into darkness. I take a deep breath, and another, and another. I don't know how long I spend staring at the wall, but when nothing happens, I feel myself start to relax. My shoulders drop a little. My jaw unclenches. Bobcat lets out an impatient yowl and stands up on his hind legs, pawing at the wall. A second later, something drops from above me and hits the ground with a soft sound. My blood freezes in my veins. I look down to the ground. Bobcat is already pouncing on the object, swatting it this way and that. I don't have to inspect the object to know what it is. A bobby pin. I snap my head up. I can make out a pale face in the shadows above me. Dark, soulless eyes are fixed on me. The face slowly pivots until it is upside down. Long tendrils of black hair creep down the wall. The face's mouth opens and releases a low groan. Bobby pins spill out of the mouth.